Yeah, just a reminder as we get started here that these meetings are recorded. So if you stay on at this point from here on and participate, either by video or by phone, that will be recorded for our distribution once at a later date. And then also whether you're on a telephone calling in or if you're online, if you're not speaking, please mute your microphone so that we don't get feedback. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Jonathan. Karen, roll call.
Yep. William Clevenger,
Here.
Bill Githens,
Here.
Sally Ricciardi,
Here.
Rich West,
Here.
and Jenny Monroe's absent.
Very good. At this time, in lieu of a pledge of allegiance, I'd like to have about 30 seconds moment of silence that we all pray for Jenny and her family at this time as they deal with family issues, beginning now. Okay, thank you. Do we have approval of minutes?
I'd make a motion that we approve the minutes from the April 28th meeting.
May I also have approval of the May 1st meeting as well?
So moved.
So moved. No.
We have a first from Rich and a second from Bill Clevenger. Roll call, please.
Mr. Clevenger,
Aye.
Mr. Githens,
Aye.
Mr. Chardy,
Aye.
Mr. West,
Aye.
none opposed.
Motion carries. Next on the agenda is the East Shore sewer rate. So I think we have Kathy Clark here tonight, as well as others.
I was told that no one else was required to come up for this,
Okay,
so nobody else is here but me.
all right.
I hope that's okay with everybody. If not, maybe we do it at the next meeting. But I'm just here because back in early January, when you reduced the per gallon rate from 8 cents to 6 cents on East Shore's pumping and hauling situation, that the council had some discussion at our request about the possible eventual drop to 4 cents per gallon. And it seemed in my memory that the discussion centered around the fact that sounded appropriate at that time, and you'd wait and see where the project was or if it was continued past May 1st. We're almost to the middle of May, and the project is obviously still underway. We're about 29% complete at this point. And it's expected that we'd all love it if it was finished by the middle of June, but the contract deadline is the middle of July. So I'm here to request if you guys would consider formalizing the drop from 6 cents to 8 cents, as we've spent at this point over $233,000 in pump and haul costs. And I think at that point Karen had asked if that rate could be made retroactive to May 1st if it was granted, and that was kind of also what's going on here.
Kathy, I think you said move it from 6 cents to 8 cents. I think you meant 6 cents to 4 cents.
Well, you originally, oh yes, you're right, because it moved to 6 and now it's 6 and we want to go down to 4. You're right.
Is there any discussion on that?
Well, this is Bill Clevenger. They seem to be pretty well underway, and although this is a little different from what I've been told that they're looking at July. But on the other hand, our ratepayers in town have taken a hit through COVID-19 and course, COVID-19 is no one's fault, but it's just a fact. And we have been accommodating in past the East Shore Corporation, but I feel that under the circumstances that they are right now, I'm comfortable with the 6 cents.
Anyone else?
This is Sally. I guess I'll speak on that issue. I think we had said that we would consider dropping it to 4 cents when they hit their summer usage, because the quantity would be higher. With the COVID-19, I don't know whether or not it really will be higher, but I'm sure it'll be somewhat higher, probably not as high as it normally is in the summer months. But I have no problem whatsoever of lowering it to 4 cents.
This is Rich.
Go ahead, Rich.
Yes, just following up on Sally's comment, I agree that probably the volume is not going to reach what we anticipated, especially between now and the completion of the project that will bring them online. So I guess I'm sort of torn on the reduction. If we this 4 cents was mentioned, I believe, as Sally said, related to volume. Since there will be some increase in volume, but maybe not all the way, would we consider going to 5 instead of 4? I'm not sure what that difference means in terms of dollars for the next 60 days.
If I may, I'm not sure what the difference, I don't think I heard what Sally said about something about volume. We're almost to 2 million gallons a day, probably over 2 million, because that was as of April 27th.
I remember when we went to the 6 cents, East Shore Corp also said that, they wouldn't mind us going back to 8 cents, when the volume increased when the summer crowd got here. And we said, no, we're just going to leave it at 6 cents. We're not going to, they offered to raise it back up, and we said, no, we're just going to leave it at the 6. So, that's kind of where I was at. And, depending on what the council wants to do, you got 3 options, 4, 5, or 6. So, is there a motion from someone in specific rate, and let's move forward on it?
Kathy, a question.
Does anybody have that in your minutes? I don't remember any of that discussion about anybody on East Shore Corp saying we could go back to 8 cents. I'm lost on that.
I remember that explicitly. So, but
Kathy, a question on the volume. This is Rich. You said we're at 2 million gallons. Is that right?
We were on April 27th, we were at, I just knocked that window out. We were over 1,737,000, and we've since added an easy, if we're not over 2 million, we're really close to it.
Over what period of time?
Since the middle.
I mean, that's not a per diem. It's a daily rate. Is that the month or?
I'm sorry. What are you asking, Rich? I don't understand.
2 million gallons is over what period of time? Is it a week?
Oh no, that's
Since August.
That's the middle of August.
Oh, so it's a total since the middle of August.
Yeah.
2 million gallons. Okay. And
we're spending between 25 and 30,000 on the pump and haul expenses. That's for both A&R wastewater, who's doing the pumping and hauling to the town of Culver.
did the East Shore Corp ever go back to A&R and ask them to cut their rate?
Yes, we've been wrestling with them just to keep them going. This is a major project for anybody.
I understand.
And we've got the best deal we can get from them. We have done everything we can. I follow the towns. I actually use the towns weigh-in weights to verify that that's what they're pumping. So, I mean, I trust you guys on your weights, and that's about all I can do. I just don't know. I guess must have misremembered because we thought that you guys had kind of discussed this already. I remember sitting in that room myself, and that it seemed like it was pretty much it would be between 4 and 5 cents. I think I do recall whoever mentioned that 5 cent mark. But I do know it was something that was going to be considered to be done. And because I remember Karen asking if it could be made retroactive back to May 1st, and she was told yes, which is why I'm here today. I just came to get a formal agreement so we can set our budget.
I understand. So is there any motion for what rate you want to move forward with, council?
This is Rich. I would make a motion that we reduce the rate to 5 cents effective May 1st of 2020.
Is there a second?
Clevenger seconds, 5.
Motion's been made and seconded to reduce the rate to 5 cents and make it retroactive to May 1st. Roll call, please.
Mr. Clevenger,
Aye.
Mr. Githens,
Aye.
Mrs. Ricciardi,
Aye.
Mr. West,
Aye.
none opposed.
Motion passed. Moving on to tax abatements. I guess Jonathan or Bill?
Well, I think we're all Jonathan and Karen, I think we're all in concurrence as it's been presented.
Okay.
Yeah, Karen, do you have the list in front of you? I don't have it up in front of me right now. I know it's LKA, CPI, and Sand Hill Farm / the paddocks.
Yeah, there's actually 4 of them.
Yeah.
There, LK's is from 2014, and they are in year 6 from 2014. There's one for 2017, so they're in year 3. Sand Hill Farm is actually, and the paddocks are also both very early on. Sand Hill Farm was from 2017 and the paddocks 2019. And basically what you're affirming is that they are in substantial compliance with what they said they were going to do, and you're comfortable continuing the tax abatement.
Karen, this is Rich, a question, and I looked at the forms but did not quite honestly understand them very well. Is it your assessment, and I guess Bill Clevenger too, your assessment that they are in compliance with what they said they would do for the abatement?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right, I'm comfortable with that.
I'd like to suggest, this is Jim Clevenger, suggest that the motion be that they are substantially in compliance.
Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made by Bill Clevenger, seconded by Rich. To approve the tax abatements that they're substantially in compliance. Roll call, please.
Mr. Clevenger,
Aye.
Mr. Githens,
Aye.
Ms. Ricciardi,
Aye.
Mr. West.
Aye.
Could I have a restatement of the motion, please?
That the tax abate, the 4 listed for tax abatements, they are substantially in compliant with the annual reporting on the forms for tax abatements to continue forward. For the tax abatements to continue forward. Does that get it?
Okay, yep, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Karen. Next, we have Sand Hill Farm and Paddocks Native Landscaping Plan.
Yeah, I took down the agenda here. So Chris, if you're ready, go ahead and share your screen if you would.
All right. Can you all see the slide?
Yeah, I'll give it a little preface here. Chris and Kevin brought this to me maybe a week ago. And the question was just regarding some of the areas and how they'll be treated with our weed and grass ordinance. They've got some areas where they want to do some native landscaping. And I kind of went over it with them, and there are exemptions already for wooded areas and wetland areas. And I think what they want to do with the plan here, if it doesn't quite fit the exact criteria we have in those two definitions, we should probably expand, but wanted to give them some feedback on it. I mean, my recommendation is I really like what they're planning on doing. And I think we need to either make those changes or just let them know that what they've got going here should apply under either our wetland or wooded area exemption. So with that, I'll give it to Chris.
Okay. Kevin, is there anything you want to open up with, or?
No, this is where IHCDA asked for sustainable landscapes on the light tech housing. So this is where I brought Cardno in. You've got Chris Klein here, who's their sustainability manager, and Christine Distmeyer, who is the project manager for this project. And we're just looking at some ways that we can make this kind of an example for Culver. When we had the meeting before, Jonathan and I talked about a little bit whether this is something that could be expanded and maybe made a goal as we go through town. So I guess I'd like you guys to look at it with that thought in mind also.
Okay, so yeah, so we'll just share, and we appreciate your time here. We'll just run through some of the design themes and elements, and we have some pictures that help illustrate what we're talking about when we say what is a sustainable landscape. And I think it's important to kind of keep in mind here that sustainability is kind of means a balance, right? It's the most green design we wouldn't consider sustainable if people don't like it, if it's too expensive. And likewise, the cheapest landscaping, just throw some grass seed down and be done with it, wouldn't be considered sustainable if it's not environmentally appropriate or requires a lot of weekly mowing or whatever. So that was one thing. And then Christine, Kevin touched on this, but
yeah. So Kevin and Easter Day approached us saying that they were aiming for a silver status with the National Green Building Standard. I want to call it a commission, but it's the National Green Building Standard is a green infrastructure set of standards for apartment complexes, and it includes how you're dealing with your water, how efficient you are with energy, how the lots are developed, everything down to actually the seeds and the trees chosen. We went ahead and came up with a proposed plan, submitted it to a regulator, and did receive a pre-approval here from the NGBS group. And I tell you what, Kevin's attention to detail helps a great deal, not only dealing with the NGBS standards, but just dealing with them personally. I can see where we're leaving this set of apartments in the grounds in good hands. That's all I had to say there.
So part of those standards is that we're going to include native plants in this design landscaping plan. We're doing that for a number of reasons, a lot of which relate to the issues of concern to the town. Deep-rooted native plants do a better job of infiltrating stormwater than traditional landscaping. If you can see here with this little pointer, this is normal turf grass, real thin roots, as compared to the deep-rooted plants that we'll be using in the plan. Helps also stabilize banks stabilization too, so preventing erosion. But we're not just using native grasses too. We're using stealing some ideas from golf course architecture and using what's called low mow fescue, which is a turf grass. It's been developed for use in the rough. It requires only a couple mowings over the season. And so we think it's a part of a sustainable landscape, and that it will reduce the noise for the residents that live in the complex, as well as the neighbors from weekly mowing, and still providing some of that green architecture that we like to see. So we'll incorporate some of this into the project as well. But this is really the heart of the plan, and so we wanted to focus your area. So just for orientation, here's Jefferson Street, and then here's the entrance, Cavalier Drive into the complex. Start off by pointing out that the purple, pink, and orange areas are where we're going to have this diverse native plantings. Probably 20 different species of plants, wildflower heavy plants. In the detention basin back here, they'll be tailored to absorb more water than in some of our drier areas. This area here, right at the entrance, is a pollinator garden, so it will be very wildflower dominant, very attractive. We'll have blooms over the course of 2 or 3 different blooming plants in each earlier spring, summer, and late fall. Then along the southern border here, we have another native area, which is we'll have more grasses in it, but that's going to be helping stabilize. There's a little slope there, but also will be colorful and attractive there. In the 30 years we've been doing these kind of landscaping plans, we've learned a lot about how you integrate native plants into human interaction. And part of that is by showing intentionality, right? So we have borders around all of our native areas. This darker green color is the low-mow fescue I mentioned, but we're also going to accent that with what we're calling an orchard. We'll have some plum trees and bluebird boxes. Jim, you mentioned those earlier. We're going to have several of those in the design here. And we also have sidewalks that help show that this area that will be a little taller vegetation is intentional, and is also going to be bordered by the lighter green turf grass, which is more traditional, right up at the doorstep. There'll be turf grass, which most people like and expect. So it's a balance. A lot of other elements in here. You see we've got over 24 trees, native deciduous trees throughout the project that will provide shade and other services there. A few other cool elements that we have engaged in this is a area for a community garden, a pit area out here for other gathering. We have some other green infrastructure, a rain garden, which kind of similar to what we have down at the town beach, and a play area. And if there's time or interest, we can show you some of the ideas that we have for the play area. It's not your traditional playground with swing sets and teeter-totters. So stop there, Christine. What did I forget? Any thing that I didn't go over, or any questions?
It looks like you hit on the main items there, Chris. The bluebird houses, we're going to incorporate some educational signs on those, so that in addition to adding a little bit of habitat for the urban dweller, it'll say, behind me is a low profile prairie. It's here to help with erosion and add beauty to the area. And
so a sign similar to this, we've got a couple of images here of what similar type of landscaping that we did at Goshen College. And again, this is how it started. This is almost 10 years old. And after 2 years, this is what we'll be looking at in some of these areas, a kind of diverse mix of wildflowers and grasses. Again, but will be bounded as this image that was taken last summer of the same property up at Goshen College, right? And you can see here kind of the design elements that we did at Goshen that we'd like to do also with Kevin at the paddocks. And you can see a border and sidewalk, the tree border that helps differentiate. Well, this is the natural area and this is the mowed area, and it helps set the area off, keep it contained, and just overall we think provides a good look for and balance that we talked about. So any questions from the council on what we're doing here?
Looks good to me.
I think it looks very good.
All right, well, we've got other pictures I can share, but of the different tree species we're using, example, the type of rain garden that we'll be using. Christine, this is one you worked on here up in Hobart, I think that was.
City of Hobart, and we had a high-profile rain garden behind City Hall there, where there is a. Let's see if we can get to that image, where there is a gazebo where the mayor does the marriages there, and it's not this. This is a little pocket rain garden that you're seeing right now, but I think the next slide is of a larger rain garden that was in its infancy when we took the picture. So. If you still see the picture of the pocket rain garden, that's actually at our native plant nursery in the middle of the parking area. It takes on the water, as does the larger Hobart rain garden, takes on the water from the parking area and helps that stay in place for maybe 10, 12 hours, and then it drains out and provides a nice native landscape. So.
And then again, can you see this different signage and some of the border projects that we'll be using, border elements we'll be using? So again, we could go on all evening, but I recognize you all have an agenda. Is there any other questions or that you'd have? We'd be happy to answer them.
I have none.
Kevin, anything?
No, I appreciate you guys taking a look at this. I just wanted this to get before you ahead of time so nobody's surprised about what we're doing. And as Chris said, that this is an intentional design. So I appreciate you taking the time to look at it with us. Thank you.
Okay.
Before we move on, and now that that's complete, and I think the plan looks great, and good luck with it. Kevin, while we're talking about, Sand Hill Farm and paddocks in other areas, can you give us a quick update on occupancy and how things are going on, so as we keep this all kind of in the same general area?
Sand Hill Farm is not doing real great with occupancy. We've got, I believe, 10 residents out there right now. As we all discussed ahead of time, I need to be about at 85% to be to break even. So right now I'm paying the interest bills. What I'm running into is the paddocks is hurting me. There are a lot of people that we are talking to that say they're waiting for the paddocks, which overall for Culver, that's good, but that makes it a little tough for me in my position right now. Some of these people, I don't think actually understand that the paddocks has income requirements also.
Right.
And they may not qualify for the paddocks either, but that's the perception that they're waiting to see what happens with the paddocks. The first building at the paddocks, we are finishing drywall inside. I think most of you probably been by and seen that the exterior is pretty much done. Drywall is being finished now. Painting starts next week. So we are looking at, by the end of summer, having that first unit open. The second unit is getting close to the same position. They're going to start insulating on that this week. And the fifth building is just coming out of the ground. The footings and foundations are in, and they're doing the under slab work. So we've got 5 out of the 7 in different stages of completion.
Very good. Thanks for that update. That's important. I just think the townsfolk and public really want to know the status of that as we go along, and updates as you can get them to us will help you as well as let folks know what's going on. So thank you.
No problem. Anytime you guys want to know anything, let me know.
Okay. moving on, we've got the next three items. I was going to say bond research, regional stellar, and stellar plan. Let's just go ahead and skip those and move that into town manager, because I think those will all come out in the town manager's report. Is that okay, Jonathan?
Sure. I'll take them in order, starting with bond research update. I think we talked about this a while back at a council meeting and wanted to just follow up on it. It was right before we launched the small business grant program. We had also talked about possibly either through redevelopment or the town looking at a bond program to help basically small businesses. Rich and I think it was Rich and I sat in on a call with Phil Facinda, the CRC attorney, and kind of went over the options. The concern I think he and I both shared at the time on the call was that the administrative cost of the bond, we were estimating to be about 50 to 80,000, regardless of the amount we would pursue. So that was kind of a minimum expense, whether it would be a $250,000 bond or $1 million bond, that it was going to fall somewhere in that 50 to 80,000 range, most likely. And then also the time frame that, as a reminder, he told us it'd probably be about 3 to 6 months from when we would initiate until we could hold all the hearings and actually have funds available. We wanted to hold off and kind of see how the grant program went. We have given out most of those funds, and we are opening up the utility bill forgiveness program for small businesses. We started taking applications on that on Wednesday. We'll take those through June 1st, and that'll, I think, benefit a lot of the same businesses that applied to the grant program. One of the questions we did have on the grant application, though, was, whether or not those small businesses would be interested in either a loan or a forgivable loan if the town would pursue this bond program. And I believe all of them answered yes, or possibly, obviously, depending on rates and details and that kind of thing. I guess that's all I know about it right now, and just wanted some feedback, I think, from council on whether or not at this time we take the next step, which would be to get a proposal from a bond council. I think is probably the next logical step if we want to go down that route, or if we want to, I guess, be a little more patient with it, see kind of how things shake out with some of the federal programs, and if we might be able to do a second round of grants on our own or something along those lines. Just looking for some feedback, I guess, before we spend a lot more time diving into it.
Jonathan.
Well, go ahead, Bill.
Well, Jonathan, and the rest of the members, Bill and I have talked about this, and we were supposed to, give a report. But both of us, I think, feel that it's kind of useless at this point, because we don't know the structure of, what you're looking at. And certainly bond underwriting fees, bond counsel fees, and so forth, you can use requests for proposals on those, and you might be able to drive the cost down, a little bit. But it's certainly, if you're looking at 250,000, it doesn't make any sense, in my opinion, to even, go forward with that. But we don't really have anything concrete to, give you at this time. I can say one thing as far as I am concerned, and as a council member, I certainly would not make a loan that's forgivable. I just think there's no point in going through the bond underwriting and so forth if you're going to hand out money like candy, and not get any kind of return. So that's my opinion as far as bond program and talking about forgivable loans. They just you're dealing with taxpayer dollars, and I don't know. That'd be a good question for an attorney, whether you could do that and give taxpayer dollars out and not expect the payment back. But Bill, you want to add anything?
Well, in addition to what you say, Bill, I know that these, businesses all have banking relationships. And I can tell you that I'm talking to Mike Pazin over at First Farmers, the PPP Paycheck Protection Program, which, covers money used for payroll, rent, mortgage interest, utilities, etc. The local branch here has served over 25 or around 25 local businesses with around $600,000 in loans through the PPP program of the government. There are other loan programs out there that, some people are trying to take advantage of. I know on the PPP, which is through the SBA, got off to a slow start. I know that several of the merchants thought the bank was at fault, but it came out on a Friday, and the businesses rushed to the bank Monday morning for money. Well, this was all through the SBA, and you had to be an SBA approved lender, and only one of the two banks in town is an SBA approved lender. So First Farmers was inundated with requests. They took them as they got them. SBA fiddled around with, coming out with all the parameters. They finally got their act together. And once their acts got together, the money started flowing. And for the fact that a local branch, like I said, served around 25 businesses and did over 600,000 in loans, that's pretty darn good. I do know that First Farmers as a total entity did over $1 billion of these PPP loans. So, it's a $2 billion bank, and to do that kind of money lending all over the state, they were very instrumental in that program. So I kind of think that, these businesses should go to their local bank and get a revolving line of credit, either for working capital or inventory or for whatever need it be. And, be subject to the same credit standards as any other financial institution. That's my opinion.
This is Rich. To chime in, and some of this will be repetitive, but I agree with both bills. I think the startup cost on this economic development bond. So if we took out a $500,000 economic development bond, it's going to cost us. If it costs us $80,000, that's 16% of the bond money itself is just going to the startup cost, and that seems usurious to me. And the second is, I guess, to the grant program, the small business grant program that we developed at the town level. I think has given out to date about $138,000 to 21, I believe, local businesses. To echo what Bill Kithens said, I know First Farmers has loans, either the PPP or the EIDL loans that have been to over 20 local businesses. So I don't think that at this point we should pursue the bond issue. I had a recent conversation with Phil Facenda about the landscaping or the flower issue to see if we could do that. And he raised another possibility, which was called, he said there's something, if we have a local economic development commission, we might be able to do something directly through CRC. So I think there's some other options to pursue. I don't think we should get in the banking business. I agree with both Bill Clevenger and Bill Kithens on that point. I think the advantage to the economic development loan is it could be used for something else besides a banking loan. So it could be used for things like recruiting new businesses to come to town, helping them pay their startup costs or build up costs. But I don't think we're there yet to move in that direction.
This is Bill Clevenger. I think what Rich just outlined makes a lot more sense than going through the effort and so forth, particularly if you're talking about a ceiling of $1 million. If you're talking about a $5 million bond or something like that, then it's economy and scale. But I think I would be interested in following up on what Rich said. That seems to be, in my opinion, a better avenue to go down than try and do a bond issue and sit here and try and make loans.
This is Sally, and I honestly, I think that the cost of bond issue is too high for us to get into that loaning business. It just percentage would be too high to make it.
Yeah.
Just one other point that really isn't to the bond issue, but I think it is to the appreciation that the local small businesses had with the grant program that the town put together. I mean, it was an interim, basically gap funding for them before, as Bill Githens said, all of the SBA stuff got ironed out, and the EIDL loans and the PPP loans. It took probably 3 weeks to get rolling. From a cash flow perspective, what we were able to do in a few days, I know is greatly appreciated by the merchants in town. And I know Karen, I think, shared with all of us a thank you note from Dawn Brocky.
Right.
And I've gotten similar responses from just about everyone who was a recipient of those loans. So I think we should be proud that we did that, and I think it's greatly appreciated by the community and the commercial community.
So Jonathan, you had in your action requested, a vote on proceeding to acquire a proposal. I don't know that we want to go with that. I think we're just gonna, see what happens with the government programs and what Rich was suggesting, and just hold off on doing anything at this time. Is that okay?
Sounds good. We move on to the next item, Regional
Yep.
Stellar.
Go ahead.
Okay. Just an update. The County Stellar Crossroads team has kind of shifted gears into fundraising for COVID-19. Some of the projects have slowed down a little bit. Some are still moving forward, but that kind of became the priority over the last month. The group came together to raise $400,000, which the town participated in, and we got many thank yous and are listed as one of the pace setters, along with Bremen and Plymouth and the county for participating in that. So the last I saw, I think the fundraising had totaled around 270, maybe 280,000 out of that 400. So I know they're still moving forward with that and keeping working on that until they get to that 400 goal. As far as our projects, we do have we have 2 projects that were in the regional development plan that was awarded. So we have 2 projects that potentially could receive OKRA and NDOT funding. The first one, the one I've kind of started to work on first, is the NDOT project, which is a trail project that would tie together several of our existing trails kind of around the downtown and west end of town, connecting to the elementary school. So it's connecting Jefferson Street, the trail project off of Sandhill Farms, with Lake Max Trails Phase 1 that runs more north-south, kind of just a little bit east of their downtown, and then running up Slate Street to the elementary school. It's a small project, $400,000 total. So our local match on it would be $80,000 to move forward with it. The next step, basically, I've got the application all put together that goes into MACOG. The next step is a letter from council, basically stating that we will meet that match. It's again over basically a 4-year period. The big chunk of it would be construction, which would be somewhere between June 2024 and April 2025, where we would have a match of about 51,000. The rest of it would be mostly engineering, and if there's any right of way that would need to be purchased, those kind of expenses. So about 25 to 30,000 of it would be over the next 3 years, and then that final 4th to 5th year we would have the large chunk in that 50,000 range for a construction match. My thought was, redevelopment has been pretty supportive of trail projects in the past. We had talked probably in January or February, and maybe even had a tentative meeting scheduled about doing a joint meeting for these matches. But I'd like to get that settled so I can include that in the letter and get this application moving forward. There's a couple other projects that I think we kind of need to do the same thing on. So I just putting that out there. I guess if everyone's comfortable with it, my recommendation would be that we get a joint meeting scheduled and kind of go over those projects, even if we have to do it in this forum and teams between CRC and town council, and kind of go through that list and come up with a plan.
Jonathan, this is Rich. Question.
Mm-hmm.
What's your sense of timing that you need to make that commitment on that
Yeah, I've contemplated if it's going to be more than a month, I guess I would ask for your permission to move forward with the letter. Honestly, NDOT and MACOG don't really care whether it comes from town council or CRC, or as long as we come up with the funds. I probably could move forward with the letter, but I'd feel more comfortable just knowing we have a plan for that. And then we've also got those few other things. So if you guys, if the consensus from council is that we'd like to schedule that meeting further down the road, I guess I would ask for your blessing on putting the letter together, which we basically have already done in the original Marshall County RDP. We include a letter in there saying we will make our 20% match on any projects that are awarded. But usually about this stage is when we, in the past, have sat down and figured out exactly which funds those matches would be coming from.
If there's a sense of urgency on this, I might suggest we separate out the trail project. I agree that we should meet jointly on the others, but I don't know that there's the same sense of urgency on those. And perhaps we could do a CRC meets next on Monday, the 18th, this coming or next Monday. If we wanted to do they meet at 5 o'clock if people were available. If we wanted to do a 4 o'clock joint meeting to talk about at least the trail project, I might suggest that.
Yeah, I guess I'll defer to you guys. I would appreciate having that one settled right, so we can go ahead and get that application in. But if the preference is to wait a little bit longer and hope things improve a little bit to where we could meet in person, that would be the only reason I could really see for delaying it. I think, like I said, the bulk of this is 5 years out, but it's, I think, just good to know. I know Karen appreciates when we get those things settled and plan for them.
Well, Jonathan, are you looking for a motion to do something at 4 o'clock next Monday? Is that you're looking for a motion, or what?
Just consensus from the group. If we want to have a special meeting with CRC and shoot for 4 on Monday, that'd be fine with me if that works for everybody.
Works for me.
It'd be okay with me.
It's fine with me, or I'd be comfortable making a motion that the town council approve or authorize Jonathan to issue a letter saying that between the town and CRC will make the commitment for those matching funds if we don't meet on Monday.
I'm happy with either one, so someone wants to make a motion to meet on Monday, that's fine. If you want to just let Jonathan write the letter, that's fine too.
Rather than try and cram.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, Bill, rather than try and cram in another meeting, I would make a motion that we authorize Jonathan to write a letter committing the town and CRC, committing the town to those matching funds.
Karen, do you have a problem with that?
I guess not. I mean, if you're hoping that CRC is going to contribute to some of it, you might want to change the motion, or I would suggest just having the meeting on Monday and getting it taken care of and straightened out. Because
Rich,
that way
would you-
CRC.
I'll withdraw my motion. Bill, if you want to make one to meet on Monday, that's fine.
Yeah, Bill Clevenger, I make the motion that we meet at 4 o'clock on Monday jointly with the CRC.
Is there a second?
This is Sally.
Sally, did you second?
Yes, I did.
Okay, motion was made by Bill Clevenger and seconded by Sally. Roll call, please.
Mr. Clevenger,
Aye.
Mr. Githens,
Aye.
Ms. Ricciardi,
Aye.
Mr. West,
Aye.
all in favor.
Sounds good. So we'll meet at 4 o'clock, I guess via computer on Monday.
Thank you. That's all I had on regional stellar for our stellar projects. Went back and forth with landscaping, so we haven't had any progress there, but I am expecting that final amount, a final change order and that work to take place here in the next few weeks. At Cavalier Park, Thomas Excavating and Welding's moving along. Things are looking good. I sent a couple pictures in my report. Some equipment's there. The building's pretty much up. Some of the sidewalks are up. They were waiting on a couple custom pieces around some of the playground equipment and things, but hopefully the end of May we see that very close to finished, if not finished. And then as far as the beach lodge, I would like to get the ribbon cutting scheduled. I sent out a couple dates and I didn't hear any issues with June 20th, the Saturday at 9 a.m. So if everybody's good with that, I would like to suggest we actually do June 20th.
You had June 27th in your minutes.
I had 27th and 20th at one point, and I know a couple people probably can't do the 27th, so I would love if we could make the 20th work.
You want a motion?
Sure.
All right, I move that we have the Beach Lodge ribbon cutting on June 20th at 9 a.m.
I'll second. That's Rich.
Oh, Bill, you're on mute.
Unmute, Bill.
Motion been made by Bill Clevenger, seconded by Rich, that we had the ribbon cutting for the Beach Lodge on Saturday, June 20th at 9 a.m. All the roll call.
Mr. Clevenger,
Aye.
Mr. Githens,
Aye.
Ms. Ricciardi,
Aye.
Mr. West,
Aye.
all in favor.
We're good. Motion passes. Jonathan, anything else?
That's it on Stellar. On to my report.
Jonathan, Rich, for a question, please.
Yes.
On the beach lodge, when are we going to, I guess, take formal acceptance of that building? I know there are a couple of punch list items besides the landscaping, keying, but have we? And I don't think we've had yet the meeting on transferring mechanical systems or educating people on mechanical systems. What's sort of the status of that? I mean, is it ours or not?
No, so not until really they ask for that final release of retainage. We did have the meeting where we reviewed the HVAC system. They cannot do the sprinkler system though until the Wi-Fi and phone are reconnected in the building. So that's kind of been holding some things up too. As far as the punch list, when we met to go over the HVAC stuff, we talked to Mike a little bit. They've got a few more things knocked out, but there are still some things on it. I did not ask him a specific date for when they had it, but you know, I know that retainage is usually enough to keep them interested. So I know they've been getting over there when they can and trying to knock out a few of those things, but I can ask them if they have a target date in mind. I know for the landscaping now, it sounded like it would probably be closer to early June. So I'm just hoping everything kind of wraps up along with that.
Yeah, I guess and I don't know whether it's a legitimate concern or not, but I mean, I think we're sort of occupying it and soon we'll be operating it.
We do have a certificate of occupancy for it.
We do have that now.
Yes. Yeah.
Liability purposes, it's still in their possession, I believe, until they turn it over to us. And I mean, they've said we can be in there and do stuff in there, but it's I don't know. I guess
yeah, all I can say is I will follow up with him. I think Steve had planned to have that final invoice ready for us soon, but at least for our review, there was a final change order amount that they were going to have us approve, but some of the landscaping changes, we were still ironing that out. But my guess is it'll probably be around, you know, June on the landscaping items. Now the rest of it, I would think they could finish before then, and we could take full possession of everything, and just with the note that the landscaping still needs to be finished.
Jonathan, can you tell me how much the retainage is?
Karen, is it 10%?
I believe so. I think the figure's around 68,000.
68,000. That's what I'm asking for.
But don't hold me to that.
No, but roughly.
It's a significant amount.
Yes. Well, that's what I wanted to get at. Thank you. Anything else, Jonathan?
Oh yeah. So back to town manager report. Bob has a quote for 50 more radio read meters from EJP for $8,750. This would be a water and sewer split, and it would leave us with about 150 meters to go to complete the process of switching out meters to radio reads. So I'd ask for your approval for that quote from EJP.
Is there a motion?
Bill Clevenger moves to purchase 50 more radio read motors from EJP for $8,750.
Is there a second?
Sally Ricciardi seconds.
Motion been made by Bill Clevenger, seconded by Sally, to approve the quote from EJP for $8,750 for 50 more radio read meters. Roll call, please.
Mr. Clevenger.
Aye.
Mr. Githens.
Aye.
Mr. Chardy.
Aye.
Mr. West.
aye.
All in favor.
Motion carries. Anything else, Jonathan?
Yeah, Bob had another item for us. It's the patch list for E&B. So while they're here paving and doing the streets that we had funded through the Community Crossings Grant Program, he usually, we do a patch list right up to the minute. So anything that's happened even since we've contracted out the Main Street work itself, we can get all those taken care of. So he has a quote to do his patch list. It's $7,700. I do not have the actual list in front of me. I don't know if Bob's on the call. If anybody wants them. Bob Porter, are you here?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay, I know it was so some of them will come out of the street. Some are water and sewer patches, so they come out of different funds. But it was a list that he had of about I want to say 6 or 7 patches, various locations throughout town, and he was happy with the quote, and so am I. So I'd ask for your approval for the E&B patch list quote at $7,700.
This is Rich, so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Bill, go ahead, Sally.
I'll second.
Motion made by Rich and seconded by Sally to approve the patch list quote from E&B for $7,700. Roll call, please.
Mr. Clevenger,
Aye.
Mr. Githens,
Aye.
Mr. Chardy,
Aye.
Mr. West,
Aye.
all in favor.
Motion carries. Jonathan, anything else?
Yeah, a couple last few items were just that we hosted a active communities workshop of, I think it's been almost 2 years ago now. And one of the things that came out of that was we were going to pursue a national walk friendly certification. And I think there is a press release that will come out tomorrow that I'll ask you all to look for. Fingers crossed, but I feel pretty good about that one. So excited to see that come out. Let's see. I think Jim may touch on the 27 group on his report, but just wanted to say thanks to the fire department for putting together their records and everybody that pitched in to go through our records, town hall and pictures and everything, and compiled those for the Freedom of Information request that they had. And that ACPI has purchased several $1,000s in chamber bucks to support our local businesses during this time. So just wanted to give them a shout out for that. I think that's a cool program they did at ACPI. And thanks to Keith Barrow, their plant manager there, for putting that together with us. And that's all I have.
Sounds good. Moving on to department head reports. EMS, Deanna, are you here?
I am. The only thing I have is I received a request from Acumed. They have 9 accounts totaling $4,204.52 that they would like to send to collections. And I would just like to know if the council would like me to proceed with that.
Bill Clevenger moves to send the accounts. The amount, Deanna, was 4,000 what?
$4,204.52.
$4,200 and $204.50 to collection.
52 cents.
Okay. Whatever the amount is,
We'll get it in a minute here, Bill. Is there a second? Sally, you second?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you. Motion been made and second to send past due accounts the EMS has for collection in the amount of $4,204.52. Roll call, please.
Mr. Clevenger,
Aye.
Mr. Githens,
Aye.
Mr. Chardy,
Aye.
Mr. West,
Aye.
all in favor.
Motion passes. Fire. Ken, are you around? Ken Vandeputty? Not hearing anything. Police, Wayne, do you have anything?
The only thing is we're moving forward with our hiring process this Saturday, and we're going to try and get things moving as fast as we can under the circumstances. So that's pretty much all I have.
Next is Park. Amber?
All the piers are completed for all the boat slips. They started moving and installing all the lifts in. So that's all done. And then I guess just for our staff, for the summertime, we're going to go ahead and start, I think, our certifications around the 22nd. But no, yeah, other than that, nothing else.
Thank you, Amber. Nothing else, anything else on utilities?
Nope.
Nothing, we've done that. Okay, so move on to boards and commissions. Plan Commission? Anyone here for Plan Commission?
Marty Ostervan's here. I'll just report that the Plan Commission will be meeting virtually next Tuesday at 6:30.
Thank you, Marty. What about BZA? Anyone here from BZA?
Same. I'll just say the same thing. Just like Plan Commission, they meet next Thursday at 6:30. It'll be online. They have a few cases to hear, I think, 2 held over and 2 new ones.
Sounds good. Thank you, Jonathan. Redevelopment, Rich?
As you all know, we've got a special meeting with the town council on
Right.
Monday at 4 o'clock and our regular meeting to follow at 5 o'clock. There were a couple projects that the redevelopment commission is sponsoring. Monday, the 18th, besides our special meetings, is going to be Paint the Town Day in Culver. We are finally getting some of the wayfinding signs painted, which will be the signs that are actually on the roadway, and that will be starting on Monday. And John and I think we're going to start around, is it Academy Road in Lakeshore Drive? Is that?
Yeah, we'll start at that one, and then there's 5 total locations, and we'll move kind of west and south through town.
Right. At the same time, the mural painting at the fire department will be starting on Monday. And we're very excited to see that project get underway. There will be a press release out on that probably later this week. And then there will probably also be some video associated with it that'll be posted on the Facebook sites and online, and also shared with the Marshall County Community Foundation, who is a co-sponsor of that event. So, and I think, the other thing that's on the agenda for the CRC that is related to the town council is we talked about, I won't call it cost shifting, but at least CRC taking on some funding that is shared currently with the town council. And so we'll be addressing that issue also on Monday in our regular meeting, not the town council meeting. That's it.
Thanks a lot, Rich. Anyone here from the tree commission? Hearing no one report. Next, we have clerk's report.
I just have 3 claims over $1,500 that need your approval. First response for $1,800, and that was for some cleaning services. The second is Michiana Contracting for $12,995.43, and that's for the Beach Lodge Stellar, but we're now into using up local funds, so that came out of both the clerk and the Cumulative Capital Development Fund. And then finally, Thomas Excavating for $50,026.72, and that again is one of the Stellar projects, and that is coming out of the Okra Grants Fund, so that's still we're still using grant money for that one.
I would move that we approve those funds or those claims over $1,500.
Is there a second?
This is Sally Ricciardi, I'll second.
Motion's been made by Rich and seconded by Sally to approve the claims over $1,500. Roll call, please.
Mr. Clevenger.
Aye.
Mr. Githens.
Aye.
Ms. Ricciardi.
Aye.
Mr. West.
Aye.
Motion carries.
And so
Anything
the last thing, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Anything
Okay.
else?
The final thing I have is that State Board of Accounts is in the process of doing a federal audit for 2019, and that started in earnest last week. So it's a routine thing. It's the federal audit is because we received more than $750,000 in federal grant money in 2019. So we're looking at federal audits for the next couple of years.
Very good.
And that's all I have.
Thank you, Karen. Attorney's report?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 4 kind of FYI things. The first one has to do with the VIP Ventures lawsuit against or related to the 614 College Avenue property. The town's liability insurance carrier retained Martin Gardner of the Gardner and Rands law firm in South Bend. He has made an agreement with the defendants or with the plaintiff's attorney to get an extension in which to file a responsive pleading until May 31st, 2020. I sent Attorney Gardner a lengthy letter and 10 attachments, included a number of records of the town's history on that 614 College Avenue property. And he indicated that after his review of those, he was going to get back to me and try to get a little more perspective of the town's situation with that lawsuit. As far as 415 Lakeshore is concerned, at this point we have a request for public records that followed the tort claim notice, as you recall. The insurance carrier asked Mr. Gardner to assist in the public records request. Jonathan pointed out earlier that he's provided a bunch of information to me that I've passed on. I received some information from Chuck DeWitt today. The fire department, thanks to Dave Cooper for providing fire department records. And so we've shifted those to Mr. Gardner and should have all of that ready to respond well before the deadline. Just a note that's not on the written report that I provided earlier concerning 415 Lakeshore. I filed the foreclosure complaint against Mr. Van Hawk and the 27 Group Inc. To try and recover our demolition expenses and some attorney fees. I sent a copy of that to Jonathan today. If the rest of you want, in fact, I think I just may share that complaint with you just so you'll have it if in case you're interested. Kind of a follow-up on the East Shore sewer situation. The Conservancy District's hearing on that petition was rescheduled to June 1 at 1 p.m. I think it's 1:30. I understand Judge Bowen does plan to proceed with that hearing. He's going to spread out the attorneys and parties to the case in his courtroom. At this point, he hasn't made arrangements for streaming it, and because of the number of people involved, he doesn't have room for any other public observation. So he's working on streaming. If I find out that that's a possibility, I'll try to let Jonathan know in case any of you want to watch, listen, or do whatever. So with that, I think I've got it covered, Mr. Chairman. So that's all I have.
Thanks a lot, Jim. Appreciate it. Anyone present for utility shut off or an ordinance violation? Hearing none, let's move on to citizen input. Any citizen input? Please speak.
Hi, this is Tracy Fox. I had a question and then a comment. So Jonathan, I know Bob is not on the call, but I was wondering if you knew when the stop signs on the crosswalks would be put in. There's certainly more and more traffic these days, for better or worse, but I'm just curious as to when those will be put in.
Yeah, sure, Tracy. That was on his list, I think, last week. And some of the, there's like, I think a rubber gasket between the street and the bolts that a couple of them were damaged. So he's had to reorder those. I don't think they're in yet, but as soon as we get those pieces back in, we'll get them out there.
Perfect. Got it. Thank you. And it's nice to see the ballards on the pedestrian trail as well. So that's great. And then I also wanted to just kind of thank the council, as Rich did, for your really, really swift action on the small business grants that you were able to provide to our small businesses. I know, like Rich, I've heard from a lot of the small businesses. We have weekly calls with them. And it's not unusual for them to raise that as a really critical, essential bridge for them to get through the first couple of weeks when things were in such turmoil with the PPP and CARES Act, et cetera. So kudos to you for that. Really appreciate that. And we'll look forward to Rich thinking about some creative ways that we can continue to help our businesses who are, while things are opening up, they are still suffering significantly. So really appreciate the leadership that you all showed on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Anyone else? Hearing no other citizen input, we'll move on to council issues. Rich?
Yes, Tracy mentioned the weekly calls with the small businesses in town and other people who want to participate. On last Friday's call, one of the things that we talked about was the utilization of masks, and talking about both the governor's order what there's some questions that were raised about what Marshall County Health Department rules or guidance were on this. And a lot of the merchants reported that while they were reopening, they weren't seeing a lot of people wearing masks coming in. They weren't sure exactly what they were supposed to do. So Tracy and Marty had dug in some research and talked to Dean, and I can't pronounce or think of his last name, but who is with the Marshall County Health Department Environmental Services Director, and got some guidance on what both Marshall County and the state's regulations are for the use of masks in retail food establishments, which is what the state term is for anybody who serves food, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a drive-in, whether it's a carry-out operation, whether it's a CVS that sells food or a grocery store that sells food. And the regulation is that all employees in those, and Marty or Tracy, chime in if I'm wrong, but all employees in those ventures are to be wearing masks, and that also in the retail settings, that employees are to be wearing masks. And in all of the settings, people are supposed to be abiding by the social distancing. So, and Ginny was on the call, and I think Jonathan was on it also. We had talked about whether the town should make a statement or pronouncement or something on this. I know Tracy put out what the county had said in Town, Gown, and Lake. And I think a couple of the merchants have, I know the collective at 120 South Main Street posted a sign that I thought was very creative. It was a takeoff on the no shirt, no shoes, no mask, no service. So I thought that was very creative. But anyway, I just raised the question. I'm not sure if we should do something else besides communicating what the county directives are or guidelines are at this point. So I raised the question. I don't have the answer.
Rich, I'm sorry, this is Tracy. I just wanted to clarify, and I think you have it right in terms of my understanding of the regulations. Any food retail establishment, which is pretty broad, it includes whether you're drive up, curbside pickup, delivery, eat in, dine in, grocery stores, all that. Correct. I didn't post that to Town, Gown, and Lake today. You got it because you're part of Develop Culver and CRC. I did send it to all the businesses in town.
Okay, my mistake. I didn't respond to all though, Tracy, so you should be thankful for that.
I appreciate that. You couldn't have. I blind copied everybody. So, but it did go to all of them. I will tell you, I have gotten a couple questions from people asking whether or not that is the case, because they were under the impression that it was only for symptomatic people. And I've clarified that, to the best of my knowledge, that is not what I heard from Dean. It is for all employees. So I'm urging people to follow up, obviously, with the health department and Dean, who's the expert. But the information he shared with me and Marty was, I thought, pretty clear.
This is Sally. I would hope that if they were symptomatic, they would stay at home.
Well, I agree.
That's all well taken. I mean, we're just lucky we live in the middle of a cornfield, but we still need to be vigilant on this COVID-19 and all the things that can happen. So there's more, there's more people come into town, it doesn't hurt to remind someone.
I think that's a good point, Bill. One of the things that I think is sort of people need to keep in mind, that as we loosen some of the social distancing restrictions, that exacerbates the opportunity for the virus to spread. So it's almost even more important now for people to take the preventive, wearing the mask aspect of it, because there's just more of us out there bouncing around. So that's going to be really important, and a key message for you all to send and others to kind of remind people.
Cliches are cliches, but an ounce of prevention.
So I guess to the question, should the council or does the council think that we should take any action or formal communication or what? I'm not sure. I believe strongly that we need to have people follow these regulations and the social distancing because I think most experts are telling us that if you don't, it's going to be more than a blip that comes back. So, and while Marshall County, I think as of this morning, had about 34 cases now and only one death, statewide, I think we're probably at about 25,000 cases with about 1,500 deaths, if I remember correctly.
And Marshall County's at 36 right now, Rich.
Oh,
36 cases, I think, but still only one death?
Correct.
Right. Well, I don't see any problem with, council, putting out a statement that, we reinforce the government's, position and, social distancing and, we're still under this order and, let's just be mindful. And we still have people that haven't come back, our snowbirds still haven't come back. And when they come back, they just need to realize that, they need to, I hate to say, use the term play the game, but, until we get it all clear, that's what we need to be doing.
so Bill, if that was a motion, I would second it.
Well, I don't like to make motions from the head chair. So if you want to, take ownership of that motion, I'll accept it.
All right. I would move that the council issue a communication reinforcing the Marshall County Health and the state guidelines on the use of masks in retail food establishments and other retail sales establishments.
This is Jim Clevenger, if I may jump in. Are you thinking in the form of a written resolution, Rich?
I'm just, I was thinking more of just a communication directive. I mean, if you think we need to make it a resolution, I also want to include in that, besides masks, the social distancing piece. But
well, that goes along with just, whatever the governor has outlined. Don't you think, Jim, we just are, reinforce the governor's
or do we want
19?
You certainly can do that. I mean, the governor's orders are, pretty clear. They're pretty well set out.
Or the option, how about this? Is it 2020-006? Is that the town's resolution on safety precautions during the COVID-19 pandemic? And maybe I'd make the motion that we add now that we're in stage 2, the requirements that are stated by both the state and the county for masks and social distancing. Would that make more sense, Jim?
I was just trying to, in my own mind, so that we knew what form of communication that you were going to make, whether you're going to do it as a letter, a resolution, who's going to do it, that kind of thing. That's what I was just really questioning.
I'll jump in here as the person that may or may not be in charge of that. I would love to put something out that just kind of shares the information that's already out there with the county health department and state. If that's acceptable, I'd just do it that way.
Okay, so I guess my motion would be that we authorize Jonathan to issue that communication on behalf of the town council.
Thank you, Rich.
Is there a second to that? Did I hear a second?
This is Sally. I'll second that.
Okay, motion been made by Rick and seconded by Sally to authorize Jonathan to put out a communique about staying with the COVID-19 guidelines and the governor's orders. Roll call, please.
Mr. Clevenger,
Aye.
Mr. Githens,
Aye.
Mr. Chardy,
Aye.
Mr. West,
Aye.
all in favor.
Motion pass. Any more citizen input?
I don't have anything else as a council member, Bill.
I mean, council member, I'm sorry. Bill?
Nothing.
Sally?
No, I'm good.
I've got one thing I would like to bring up. I think everybody got the email text from Rose Workman, who's head of the Lake Fest committee, that Lake Fest this year has been canceled. I know that's going to hurt the town, hurt, morale and the businesses. I just want to throw it out there for the council's discussion. What do you think about going back to the Lake Fest committee and asking them to consider a fundraiser or work on their funds or try to raise funds to at least have fireworks that weekend? I know a lot of people come down here for Lake Fest, and the highlight of the weekend is the fireworks. The Academy usually has fireworks at that same time, and definitely on the 4th of July, and they're probably not going to have that this year. What are everybody's thoughts about, going back to the Lake Fest committee and say, what can we do to have fireworks to, get everybody back in a good frame of mind, and, hopefully by mid-July we'll be all over this and just get something good going in town. What are everybody's thoughts?
Just as a piece of information, Bill, since the Visitor Center worked very closely with the Lake Fest committee last year, and in fact, Rose was a Visitor Center employee, basically working as an assistant to Trent. I know that the fireworks portion is and their fundraiser to get funds to do that was in excess, if I recall correctly, of about $20,000. It usually runs between $20,000 and $24,000. And it's done by their solicitation letter that goes out to all of the community and businesses. And that's just as a point of information.
Right. Anyone else? Do y'all think it's a good idea? You think I barking up the wrong tree, or don't want to do it, or?
I'm wondering if by, July 17th or thereabouts, whether we're going to want to have that kind of numbers of people converging on the lake for fireworks, quite frankly.
Okay.
I think it's a good idea, but I have the same concern Sally does. I mean, I'm not sure where we're going to be, and that, in order to get the fundraising effort started, it needed to probably start a couple weeks ago at least. So
okay. Well, I just wanted to bring it up and throw the idea out there, and that's fine. I mean,
it doesn't hurt to talk to them about it, Bill. I mean, if you'd want to approach them, I wouldn't have a problem with that. I'm not sure. I agree with the idea, but I am still concerned about where we're going to be in July.
Okay. Just trying to get something positive, over the summer months, but that's understandable. Okay, being no other council issues, do I hear a motion for adjournment?
Bill,
What? Something, Jonathan?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just had one thing. I just wanted to confirm. I don't think we had said officially that the next regular council meeting would be in Teams. I just wanted to confirm that was still the plan. Or open it up for discussion otherwise, I suppose.
I think the next council meeting still needs to be via the computer, like we're doing.
Agreed.
I agree.
I agree.
Okay.
Thank you.
Jonathan, is that your answer?
Yes.
Sounds
Bill.
good. Yeah. Yeah, Bill.
Do we need to have you extend the emergency declaration?
Jonathan,
Yes,
till what,
7 days till the 19th,
17th?
19th.
19th, do we want to go longer than that till the next meeting or just 7 days?
Just 7 days.
Just 7 days? Is there a motion to extend that?
Bill Clevenger moves
Is there a
to
second?
extend the date.
Sally seconds.
Motion been made and second to extend the date to May 19th. Roll call, please.
Mr. Clevenger,
Aye.
Mr. Githens,
Aye.
Ms. Ricciardi,
Aye.
Mr. West,
Aye.
all in favor.
One other question, just on logistics. Karen, do you need us to authorize the president to sign off on the claims on behalf of all the council? Or it was in sort of our original guidelines, but I don't know if you want it done at each meeting.
Well, I think you guys passed the claims anyway. What I've been doing is since you are actually formally meeting and passing the claims, I've been just holding everything that needs to be signed for either when each of you would like to come in the office and sign them, or
Okay.
at a later date when we actually see each other face to face.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I'd say let's just hold them and wait till we get back all together.
I'm making notes on each of them, so trying to keep track.
Understand. Okay. Motion, is there a motion for adjournment?
This is Sally. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Rich, I'll second.
Motion been made by Sally, seconded by Rich to adjourn the meeting. Roll call, please.
Mr. Clevenger,
Aye.
Mr. Githens,
Aye.
Ms. Ricciardi,
Aye.
Mr. West.
Aye, and can we figure out how to mute the cuckoo next time?
Well, I like it because I know exactly what time we adjourn the meeting.
Thank you all, and I appreciate everybody's involvement tonight.
Thank
Have a
you.
good
Have a good
evening.
evening.
Thank you. Stay safe, everyone.
See ya.
Yep.